Good evening and welcome to the March Volunteer Forum. We're coming to you tonight from the District 22 office, and ordinarily right about now I'd be saying we were coming to you from the Marupna Championship sites. However, thanks to the storms and rain that occurred across the state this morning and this afternoon, particularly here in Shepparton, unfortunately we've had to do the quick relocation here to the District 22 office. And my big thanks to everyone involved tonight in pulling that together and setting it up here in the district office, and a big thanks to Tony Owen and the crew here that made that happen. And just to show you, I think some of the effects of the rain, we've got some photos of the site as to why we couldn't have it at the championship grounds. And as you can see, the storms that went through did have quite substantial downpours. And that's why we decided to temporarily relocate the Volunteer Forum to the District 22 office here tonight. But never fret, our DMOs, our beloved DMOs, and the championships organising team have been out there all afternoon. In fact, they are still out there, and it's one of the reasons why our beloved Danny Jones won't be on the chat tonight, getting it ready for the festivities to kick off on Saturday morning. So thanks to everyone for making that happen. I'd like to at this point to acknowledge the Aboriginal lands which we meet on this evening and pay my respects to Aboriginal elders past and present, and recognise the strength and resilience of Aboriginal people in this land. Well, we've got another full agenda and jam-packed things to talk about. Joined, as usual, by a knowledgeable panel, and we've got Deputy Chief Officer Kayleen Jones. Welcome, Kayleen.
Thank you, Chief.
No stranger to the panel, and a lot of hard questions coming your way tonight, I'm sure.
Do my best.
Fiona Macken, our Project Officer for our Fire Medical Response Program. We're going to feature a bit about FMR later, and I'm sure you'll tell us a lot of good things about the program. Welcome, and thank you for coming along. Sam.
Hello.
President of the VFBV, thank you for joining us this evening. It's great to have the VFBV here, and of course it's a big event for the VFBV this weekend. And last weekend for
Definitely
the junior champs and the senior champs this weekend, and it's great to have you on the panel, and I'm sure like yourself as the president, between the two of us we can answer the hard ones. What do you reckon?
Definitely.
Excellent. And Neil Levitt, thank you for joining. I know you're going to talk about some of the champs.
Yes.
And some of the features of the champs, and maybe touch on what's new in the championship space as well. So I look forward to having that chat with you. My big thanks, as I said, to the championships team, but in particular, the event that will be happening this weekend, it can't happen without the dedication of some great volunteers and staff, and I'd like to personally thank the following people. Alan Davies, you know what you've done, a fantastic effort. You put your heart and soul into the championship, so we want to thank you for your efforts with that. The COGS group for all your effort, the volunteers and staff at District 22, and the VST team. The event certainly wouldn't happen without it, as well as our VFBV representatives and management team, because again, a lot of effort poured in and a lot of hard work, blood, sweat and tears, so to speak, goes into making the champs a successful event. So as usual, tell us where you're from. We're always interested in knowing where our members are joining from and watching the volunteer forums, but I'll ask one more thing tonight. Tell me how much rain you got. Interested in knowing where the rain gods brought the wet stuff today and how much fell across the state. As usual, we are joined by a live audience this evening, and they're looking fantastic, like coiled springs, ready to get up and answer some questions. But we've actually got two very special guests in the audience this evening, and they know who they are, and in a minute they might want to wave their hand. We're joined this evening by two board members, Ross Coyle and Peter Shaw of the board. Give us a wave, guys. Thank you. So I'm sure thank you for coming this evening. It's great to have the board involved in what we do. And I know the board's been very keen to get out and about with our membership, to hear what matters most to you, and to participate in things such as the championships, the volunteer forums, and many of the other events, whether it be brigade dinners, medal presentations, or the like, for our members and brigades across the state. So thank you, Ross, and thank you, Peter, for joining us this evening. A lot of things have been happening over the last couple of weeks, and just a couple of things to touch on this evening. Today, the Fire Services Implementation Monitor, the Honourable Niall Blair, tabled in Parliament the Year 2 report, annual report, for his findings against the Fire Services Reform Program agenda. We're just about to put in the chat a link to the Fire Services Implementation Monitor's website, where you'll be able to download his Year 2 report and see the observations and recommendations that he has made for the Victorian Government to consider as we move into the Year 3 program. One of the things that I would like to point out, however, is that his Year 2 report is exactly that, the second year of reform. So it is to a point in time, and that point of time is to June last year. Yes, I understand the irony of the report being dropped in March, but unfortunately, because of the election, he was unable to table his report because Parliament wasn't sitting, and this was the first opportunity he had to do it. I encourage members to get a hold of the report, to read it, and to understand his observations and finding of where we are with the reform process. Next week, we'll also bring another major step in the reform process with the release of the initial determination report by the Fire Boundary District Review Panel. It's a bit of a tongue twister, isn't it? The report is due to be released on the 30th of March, where the panel will actually release its initial determination for fire risk and areas of increased fire risk across the state. As we know, this is a process that will occur every 4 years now. And the panel was established on the 1st of July 2020 when the Fire Rescue Victoria Act came into being. The panel has the job of looking at and determining and making recommendations to the Minister for Emergency Services whether it is necessary or desirable that a change to the Fire Rescue Victoria boundary occurs, or whether there's been sufficient change in fire risk that warrants an investigation or recommendation to a boundary change. That boundary change can either be a contraction or expansion of the Fire District panel. We look forward to the release of the report next week. In the meantime, many people may be aware that I summoned the ACFOs to Central Highlands a couple of weeks ago. We went through what the CFA will be doing in respect to the Fire Boundary Review Report's initial determination and how brigades will be explicitly involved in that process. More information on what we're doing for the Fire Boundary Review process and how we will formulate the Chief Officer's response to the panel is available on Members Online. If you want to know more information about the Fire Boundary Review Panel, its processes, methodology, and to get access to the initial determination when it is released next week, we'll put a link to the website in the chat. Sam, that's probably going to be a big thing for next week for our members. It's the first determination by the panel. It is an initial determination, so it means that if they do identify areas of the state, it doesn't necessarily mean straight away that it will transition. We're going to get the opportunity to provide a response to that.
Yeah.
How important, from the VFBV perspective, is it that our brigade members have input into that and that we work together to pull that all together?
I think it's extremely important that our members have a say, that they work together with CFA to put in place support mechanisms for those brigades in those areas that have obviously been targeted by that particular report. But I also think we need to, I suppose, take a breath. Actually figure out what this means, what the report means. It's the first round of this situation, so I honestly think that working together with our members, giving them the information that they actually need and making sure that we fully understand what the impacts of this is going to be.
Absolutely, and that's critically important, and that's why the panel allows us 9 months. It's the legislation allows up to 12 months. We've been told we've got 9 months to really think it through, take that careful approach and understand what it means and when we put our submission into the panel. So a lot of conversations to take place. I know the VFBV very interested and we'll be part of that process. I know I've given my commitment to the brigades across the state that may be affected by the initial determination, that we'll be working with your district ACFOs, with the BMTs, in order to put together a plan in response to that will be signed off by the BMTs, that will be rolled up, that'll formulate my official submission to the Fire District Review boundary. So more information next week when the determination is released, so stay tuned. Fiona, we said we were going to have a chat about fire medical response. It's something that's not entirely new in CFA. We've had EMR for a while, as many people might know. We took opportunity to speak to a brigade that's already in the EMR space, or the medical responder space. So I reckon we might throw to Edithvale that will talk about emergency medical response, but more importantly, medical programs and the important role that our CFA members can play in the community undertaking that medical response process. And then we'll come back for a bit of a chat about where things are up to. Over to you, Graham.
My name's Graham Fountain and I'm the captain of Edithvale Fire Brigade. I've been involved with EMR since its inception and its introduction in 2008 as a pilot to 5 volunteer brigades across the state. There is no doubt participation in medical response directly contributes to saving lives within our community, probably more so than our actual fires. I can assure you participation in medical response in support and complementary to Ambulance Victoria directly contributes to saving lives within our community, in some cases more so than firefighting. Participation in medical response is based on analytical data of cardiac arrest registers and where our community needs medical response first and foremost. Medical response is a key element to the chain of survival and ensures that the earliest possible intervention of trained medical responders with the right equipment can support a patient in need. The initial hesitation of medical response has been well and truly overcome by the positive contribution our medical responders make to our community. Whilst it's confronting at times, it is manageable. We practice in our firefighting day-to-day dynamic risk assessment and our wellbeing programs. They're embedded in our DNA and our service delivery model today. It is no different with medical response. While some of the scenarios are more confronting than others, debriefing processes, support and wellbeing through CFA's wellbeing programs, and an ability for a brigade or a member to select that they're not going to participate in medical response because of whatever reason, is another element to ensuring that our members are not put into situations for which they are not comfortable and situations which may trigger an unpleasant memory. The workload associated with medical response has just become part of our normal service delivery to the community. It fluctuates with seasonal conditions, with medical conditions that are apparent in our community, as most recently as we saw with COVID, but that just requires an element of the dynamic risk assessment and putting our medical training to good use. The clinical education elements to maintain your currency in medical response delivered through Ambulance Victoria is an essential part of ensuring that we maintain our skills, just like we do for firefighting, in order to deliver medical response. There is no significant workload attached with medical response, and the data that's been analysed to select the brigades that participate in medical response programs will ensure that that workload is forecast, discussed with brigades, and forms part of the brigade's decision-making on whether or not they believe they have the capability and capacity to take on medical response in addition to their normal firefighting obligations. Whilst not all of our medical responses have a positive patient outcome, it's important that we provide support to our team members that participate in the program. That support comes in a range of ways. CFA's existing peer support and wellbeing programs, but also a follow-up by the clinical educators and members of the Ambulance Victoria EMR team who will check in and debrief and provide feedback to members as required. There's a host of benefits from participation in medical response programs, none more so than having a direct contribution to members of our community that are in need of urgent medical attention. The camaraderie and team building contributions to our members shouldn't be underestimated. You work as a team on the fire ground now, you work as a very close-knit team in a medical response scenario, with members assigned tasks, either airway management, CPR, defibrillation, first aid, or assisting Ambulance Victoria with other needs whilst they do their important enhanced medical intervention that we're not involved in. Operating as one team to provide the best outcome possible to patients in need within our community, I highly commend participation in CFA's medical response programs to each and every brigade and member for which it is offered.
Thanks, Graham, for that introduction on what medical responder programs can be like in the CFA, and certainly highlighting the great work that Edithvale does performing EMR functions across District 8 and their respective surrounds. Fiona, tell us a little bit more about yourself and FMR, and I guess we've already got one question in the chat here from Dyzell, who asks, what's the differing names between EMR and FMR, and are they the same deliverables?
Sure. Okay, so if we start with the differences between the two programs, EMR commenced back in 2008 when the fire services obviously were arranged somewhat differently. And as members will know, at that time we had volunteer brigades and career staff delivering the same program side by side. Now obviously we've been through a reform process since then, and many of the integrated brigades, the EMR program has moved across to FRV. We do have 6 EMR brigades remaining in CFA who do a wonderful job. We saw Edithvale there on the video, and there's 5 others as well. But this obviously reform offered us an opportunity to branch out and do something new that was just bespoke for CFA. So this has been built specifically for CFA volunteers with cardiac arrest primarily in mind. So a lot of work that I've been undertaking since I commenced at the end of last year has really been around building this program 100% with volunteers in mind. I'm a volunteer myself, 15 years in my brigade, and I'm really passionate about delivering a program that is fit for purpose for CFA. So they are slightly different. The scope of practice is a little bit different. The name obviously is different, but the intention is to provide this additional responder step in the 10-step chain of survival model, which is a globally recognized model. So we're not there to replace ambulance, we're there to put some early intervention in.
And I think that's really the key to it, isn't it? So Victoria, by contrast to other states and territories in the state, has the highest rate of survivability from a cardiac event. That's because of the intervention programs that are available in Victoria. And so you talked about, obviously, it's about reducing the trauma chain and intervening. Yep. And there's a difference between EMR and FMR. EMR was that traditional program that we did with our career staff when we had career firefighters, and we're continuing on. But the new program, FMR, tell me more about how, so because it's a by invitation program, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have been fielding quite a few questions from brigades who are concerned that maybe they're going to be forced into a medical response program. Absolutely not. We're not forcing anyone to do anything. So this is absolutely an opt-in program, and we have data from Ambulance Victoria to help us decide which parts of Victoria we might go out to start consulting with and inviting into the program. But absolutely, there's no forcing anyone to do anything. And even within a brigade, if a brigade itself chooses to undertake the program, not every member of that brigade may want to do it, and that's okay as well. So absolutely, nobody's being forced to do it. But as we saw in the video with Graham, absolutely, it provides hugely positive outcomes for community, and we can only increase that cardiac arrest survival rate.
And I think that's really, I know from myself, I've been getting lots of correspondence and letters and calls from brigades wanting to get involved in some sort of medical responder program because our members are from the local community. They are the local community.
Exactly.
And Ambulance Victoria, as great a job as they do, they're not everywhere every time they're needed, and particularly in some of those rural and country areas.
Yep.
And when someone in your community is suffering from a cardiac event, and FMR is really principally focused on that cardiac event, isn't it?
That's it.
It allows our members to be able to respond and to be able to deal with that. So talk me through, I guess, some of the support that'll be put. So if a brigade is invited to participate in the FMR program, what's some of the training, what's some of the support, particularly the psychosocial support and help that's put around them, given that it is not beyond the realms that they will be responding to an incident involving either one of their loved ones or someone that they know within the community? Yeah,
and that's a great question and a really timely one too, actually, because we've been working really hard for probably the last month or so on determining exactly which ambulance event codes will become a part of this. We're trying to balance doing the most good we can, but with also bearing in mind the psychological impact that the program could potentially have. I've spoken at length to EMR brigades, I've spoken at length to other representatives in the organisation, and of course this program is delivered hand in hand with ambulance, so I've spoken to them at length as well, because they have ambulance community officers and CERT teams who have a very similar model, community responders as volunteers responding potentially to their neighbour. So I'm trying to learn from all of these people with previous experience. So we've tried to really build it with that volunteer experience in mind. Getting back to your question about psychosocial support, I'm actually just in the process of bringing an L&D or learning and development lead in at the moment, but their primary job is going to be building a training package. So obviously we're going to train them in the nuts and bolts of CPR and advanced resus, but there's a whole range of other things that we're building. So at the moment we're building a digital reporting platform, so they're going to learn how to use that. There's a whole wellbeing and mental health package. There's mental health resources that I'm building into the program which are coming. There's a whole aspect of ambulance handover that's quite a big thing to learn, and you will have seen in the video the defibs are actually Zoll, not Philips, like the rest of CFA, and that was done on purpose because Zoll is what ambulance use, so for patient handover, it becomes a seamless process. So there are many things being built in, both clinical and psychological support.
And it's not just CFA on its own. So we are looking to second someone from Ambulance Victoria to come into the program to assist us with that as well. And also, thanks to the government allowing us to reprioritise some investment. So, there's some $4 million into this program to roll it out across the state. So how many brigades are we looking at putting in place first?
So there's funding for 50. As I said, locations are yet to be determined. We have a long list, longer than 50, based on Ambulance Victoria data, but we actually went through an 11-step process, which we're getting sort of halfway through. So we've done all of our internal, looking at things like SDS, looking at how close they are perhaps to an FRV brigade, obviously looking at ambulance response data. And then what we're going to do is take that long list, that's quite a lot longer than 50, and we're going to start going out to brigades and making sure that they are the very first people to know that they are being invited into the program.
And that's pretty important to understand, because I know from my conversations I've had with Deputy Chief Officer Cook and the like, one of the things that I've made very clear is the FMR program will not compete. No. It's not there to replace Ambulance Victoria. It's not there to compete or replace EMR.
That's right.
And it's certainly not there to compete or replace any CERT program that AV has in place. So for those brigades that are covered by those programs already, it is very unlikely that they will be targeted as part of this program. So we really are talking about those brigades, principally in rural and regional areas that, as you say, the data indicates that there's an advantage to patient outcomes if an FMR program is rolled out in their location. And again, it's by invitation. No one's forcing the brigade to do anything that they don't want to do, and there'll be those conversations. In terms of, I guess, equipment being put into the brigade for the program, what sort of equipment are we looking at?
Well, obviously they'd be getting a Zoll AED. They'd also be getting an advanced first aid kit. They'll be getting oxygen resus equipment if they don't already have it. We're also giving Samsung Toughbook tablets to all the brigades, and that's going to have our digital reporting platform on there. And then I'm actually looking at developing new PPC for these responders as well. So it's fit for purpose for medical response, which obviously they may spend some time on their knees doing CPR. But what's also really important about PPC is the hygiene aspect. So you could have been at a grass fire on Sunday and still be a bit black and sooty, and then turning up to someone with an open wound on Monday. And from a hygiene and infection perspective, that's not ideal. So we're looking at developing a new set of gear, completely different to any other PPC that we have. It will very clearly identify that our members are here in a medical response capacity, so that will help ambulance. But it'll also help with hygiene, because we can encourage members to make sure they wash their gear regularly after each incident, and only be turning up to those incidents in clean PPC.
Look, certainly from my perspective, I think clean PPC is what we want to do, and as we know, the combustible particulates and the like, it's always essential that we have clean PPC next to our skin and on our bodies. Fiona, a lot of questions in the chat. You are quite popular tonight.
Excellent.
So one, I guess, here is. If I look at here, so I'm in District 6 HQ Brigade. I can't fight fires, but I'm a registered nurse and work in emergency. Will I be able to join an FMR brigade, or will there be boundaries?
Janine, that is a great question. And we're actually looking at the different pathways by which people can join the program. So we've got those members who are already firefighters and would like to enter into the FMR program. Then we may have members of the community with no first aid or medical experience whatsoever who would like to join their brigade solely for the purpose of doing FMR. That's going to be another pathway. And then, Janine, there'll be people like you who already have extensive knowledge and skills but aren't interested in fighting fires. And so we'll be looking at an RPL process, so recognition of prior learning, experience and skills, and that will be a separate pathway as well. So I guess what that means for CFA is we have the potential to invite a lot of really skilled and knowledgeable people into our brigades in a medical response capacity, and then you just never know, maybe they'll become firefighters as well.
Yeah, very true. Or I'm even thinking, rehab brigades,
Yep.
And the like. We're always looking for people that have those skills to be part of the rehab units. And I know Deputy Chief Officer Jean Dyzell is online. She's answering questions in the chat, as I know Jean loves to do. And I know Jean would say that if you are already a healthcare professional on LMS, there is the opportunity, the ability for you to load your, I'm going to probably get this wrong, your APRA number.
Yes.
So again, it's about recognising the skills and experience that you do have in the industry, particularly for those people that are clinically qualified and certified in Australia. Some other good questions here. So when do you anticipate the first FMR brigade will go online?
That's quite a challenging question. Bearing in mind I'm only 4 months in the role, Robert, one of my neighbouring brigades. So as I said, only 4 months in the role. We're really working on some of the foundational activities at the moment. So as an example, we only had our MOU with ambulance signed off on Tuesday, so only 2 days ago. So things like that are what we're working on at the moment. So putting a timeline and a definitive schedule on things like when we're going to go out and start consulting and when we're going to actually start rolling out is a little bit difficult to pin down. I think, Robert, I would like to say that in terms of consultation, we will be commencing that by the end of the year.
Awesome. Great response. And another one here, will brigades enrolled in this program be measured on service delivery standards or SDS response times for FMR calls together with separate to fire response? And probably, Kayleen, a question for you, your area in OPC, operational performance and capability. You're responsible for SDS reporting and data capture and the like, and I know we're having some conversations internally about establishing an SDS for EMR. I'm sure there's probably some work being done around what will be the SDS for FMR.
Absolutely, and I think what we're trying to identify and achieve across all of our measures is a service standard that allows us to meet community needs and community expectations. So it needs to be considered and developed in light of what we're trying to achieve and the outcomes that CFA requires of the brigades, so that we're meeting Ambulance Victoria's requirements as well as community expectation.
So Sam, how important do you think programs like this for our volunteer brigades that want to do it in their communities, how important do you think is it for CFA to offer programs like this?
Oh, definitely. I think it's vital. There is a definite need in our country areas where they haven't got the capacity for ambulance access. This just gives brigades another option and another way to volunteer and serve their communities. So for those that are interested and highlighted as an area of need, this is a great program that's being put in place. Absolutely.
Another great question here in the chat about do all vehicles have a defibrillator? Well, my answer to that is I hope so, because we bought them, and I know Rick Owen was rolling that out, and certainly I know many districts have already put a defib on there. And I've got to say thanks to the CFA Donations Trust, as well as CFA and the investment in the importance of putting a defibrillator on every operational vehicle is essential to, again, the survivability of our own members. Whilst I know these things, the defibrillators will be used on community members from time to time, it was really about making sure that firefighters and heart attacks, unfortunately, is one of the leading causes of firefighter fatality across the world. That we are, again, that chain of survivability, increasing the most that we can do by putting that piece of equipment on the trucks. Well, thanks, Fiona. Great. Lots of questions in the chat. I know we could probably talk about this all night, but I do have lots of other things to talk about. So thanks for coming along this evening.
If it's all right with you, I might just give our intranet page a little plug. So I'm doing monthly updates on our intranet page. So if you go to Members Online and put in Fire Medical Response, you'll find that page. So I endeavour to update it the first week of every month. We also have a new email address. So if you have got direct questions, you can email fmr@cfa. And finally, we are up here at the Champs this weekend. So if anyone watching is coming up, please come and say hello. We have some fun stuff to give away. And it's a joint effort. Myself and AV will be there. So we hope to meet you.
Excellent, thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, there was the plug, and I'm sure the team behind the desk will be able to put into the chat the link to the Members Online page. And thank you again, Fiona, for all your hard work. I think it's a really valuable program, and I know you've been working you haven't been along with us long in this role, but you've done a power of work, and I know that the success of the program will be assured thanks to the hard work of yourself. Well, we are here, as I said, in Mooroopna yet again for what will be a fantastic weekend of fun, camaraderie, and I'm sure a little bit of banter and competition. I guess we'll talk now about champs and the importance of champs. So Sam, the champs go back a long time,
Definitely.
Long association with CFA, the fabric of what it means to be in Victoria, firefighter competitions, even well before the CFA was even created. Talk us through why it's so important.
From, I suppose, my perspective and everyone else's, it has a long history for a start. And I think that there are many brigades across the state who are extremely passionate about competitions. It's, like you mentioned, it's a bit of a culture, the camaraderie is there, but it's also about skill. It's about being able to train in an area of what they're actually doing on the fire ground as well. So many of our brigades are high performing brigades, and it's because of some of the training that they actually do relating to competition, both urban and rural. I think there's been a lot of changes at the moment to our competition, and we're trying to increase participation. We've obviously had a drop off like many other organisations at the moment, sporting groups at the moment. So we're looking to attract more brigades to the competition. And as you know from last week, the competition was highly sought after, and it was very exciting for the urban juniors last week at the competition.
It's sheep stations.
Definitely. There was one particular event, a MAFRA team, 14 and under, and the smiles on their faces and the excitement of winning something that I think they didn't expect was a highlight for me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Kayleen, within CFA management structure, your area is responsible for assisting the VFPV with the championships. I know you've been doing a little bit of homework about the championships since you came into CFA. Talk to me, I guess, the role of championships within the OPC portfolio and some of the things that we're doing or have done to make it a successful event.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. So there's been a lot of work done by the team, naturally enough, to sort of reflect and grow and build from what we've done in previous years. And holding it here in Mooroopna for the third year in a row this year has given us an opportunity to make sure that what we're delivering within the champs is actually, showcasing some of the incredible skill, as Sam said, of our brigades who are training and participating in this. So we've got around about 111 teams participating over the 2 weekends of champs, so last weekend and this weekend coming. We've been able to actually expand the corporate tent. So we've got a few other displays. We've got an aviation display this year, as well as the other displays that we've had previously. So our vehicles are here, and I won't steal your thunder about the Ultra Heavy, but there's some extra exciting vehicles that'll be here this year. But what we want to do is try and understand, particularly for those brigades that are here, we'll be doing a survey while the champs are running this weekend, understand what you enjoy about champs, opportunities and ideas for continual improvement. But importantly, we want to understand from those brigades who aren't here what it is that's precluding you from joining champs and coming to join us, or what your thoughts are if you've participated previously, why aren't you participating now, and that kind of thing. So we really want to understand and build champs so that it's modern and it's effective, and it's actually allowing us to then not only reflect on our history but be really sure about what we're providing to our members in an environment such as this, where it is really, really fun, but it's also a very serious competition for those who are in there participating.
Absolutely. And on the screen right now, we're seeing some highlight reel from last year's competition. And Sam, to your point, the smiling faces, the competition, and it has evolved. And we saw some firsts last year with some female-only events.
Yeah, it's been a highlight.
Yeah, tell us more about it.
So I suppose to try and attract more interest and more brigades, we noticed that the junior championships at both rural and urban had a high proportion of female competitors. It was nearly 50-50 in the junior competition. And we noticed that started to drop off as they moved to senior competition. So being who I am, I started to ask questions about why we didn't actually have female-only events. So obviously there is a little bit of a disadvantage if you're running 80 metres down a track for a hydrant race. So I'm very happy that CNR at both the urban competition were quite supportive of initiating trials, and now they're actually part of the program. So women-only events have been included to open up the competition.
So Neil, talk me through, I guess, from your view, some of the changes. And I hear this thing called the Competition Rules Committee, and some tell me they're tougher than the AFL Tribunal. Talk me through it.
I don't think they're as, thanks Jason, I don't think they're as tough as the Tribunal, AFL. Seriously, no, we've tried to make a few changes to make it a little bit more inclusive and a little bit easier for some of the competitors to run. We have been, over the years, we used to have a lot of teams enter, and we were fairly strict on how we run, but now we allow composite teams. We allow you to borrow competitors from another team. I mean, if there's 5 in a team and you can only get 4, you can borrow one from next door. And
I can put a ring in on the chief's charges. Is that what you're telling me?
No, that's not quite correct yet at this stage. But
it doesn't apply to the charges.
It doesn't apply to the charges. But we are trying to we have to get our numbers back because we lost a few at COVID. It's probably we've talked about before. But to get those numbers back, we have to make it easier for people to compete. And just following on from Samantha, we in the rules whether we have a female team has been a little bit contentious in a way that a lot of the guys and the girls, they turn out together at the fireground and they're not really worried that they want to run separately. But it is a competitive event, and the females do get a disadvantage, I'm sure, in the sprints type sort of scenarios. So we've just included a female trophy this year for just the outstanding team, and that may lead on in the future to having female-only events, a different event or whatever, but we're just testing the waters at this stage. I think we've got 3, 4 or 5, or somewhere between 3 and 5 all-female teams this year, so that'll be a bit of a start anyway.
As the song goes, from little things, big things grow. Question over Sam or Terence. Neil, Terence asks, says, championships are great, but they partly use antique equipment, I think, carts, the ladders, the like. When will competitions start to use current equipment?
Very good question, because it's on my lips at the moment. Look, we've kept the low-down pump just for the historic value, so that's one event. But even this year we've changed what's our second event, which is the what we used to call a 2-man ladder, or whatever way you like to call it. But it's become an event that's more relative to fireground practice. So you don't find hoses laying on the ground at the fireground. So we've put hoses coming off the reel and whatever. The problem, it's been really good when in the 80s and onwards, when all the tankers were like the Isuzus and they ran. So we built trailers that match them. But now we're getting to the stage that all the new breed tankers have different priming mechanisms, or there's no longer a little hand pump to get up there and pump. So that's something we have to look at in the very soon future as to how we change that.
Auto primers on competition trailers.
Why not?
That'll see the times drop.
That will.
I'm sure the purist runners out there are probably falling off their seat at me mentioning such a thing.
They probably are, but we still got to be able to. We have to move. We can train on the current tankers because and they are really different.
Important. So I know I've had many conversations particularly with Al Davies, who's really passionate about championships is about friendship, camaraderie, a bit of competition, but it is about firecraft. It is about bowling hoses, connecting onto hydrants, shipping hydrants, footing ladders and the like. And they're all the things that you would ordinarily do on the fireground. So it is as much of a skills sort of recognition process. I know we've been having some conversations. Probably been robusty type conversations around how we start to recognise the things that we do at Champs in some of that skills maintenance arena as well, isn't it? That's something we just need to keep pushing, that the minimum skills sign-off can be done with most of the stuff we do at championships, for the practical stuff, that is. Yeah. Fair. Question, I guess more than a question, a comment here from Janine. My father loved the torchlight in March. He was a 70-year veteran of the CFA and the VFB before he passed away. I experienced my first torchlight last year. How special?
Oh, it's wonderful. For anyone that hasn't ever taken part in it, it is just an absolutely spectacular event when all the brigades form up, all the torches are lit, and they then march down the main street. And I have to say, last year was a highlight. We were lucky enough to have a festival running at the same time, so the crowds last year were magnificent, and we're looking forward to having amazing crowds again this year on Saturday night.
And even like thinking that last year, Kayleen, we festivals coincided with the Illuminate Festival here in Shepparton.
They did.
And I think we had something like, 10,000 people down the street that watched the CFA Torchlight Parade move down. Now, what a spectacular sight once you sort of got past the smoke and haze of the kerosene lamp and choked a bit and whatnot. So I know that's something that we have been looking at, isn't it, Kayleen, in terms of alternate fuels and different arrangements, because obviously the days of the Kero lamp is probably numbered somewhat. Tell us about some of the things that we're trialling this year.
Yeah, thank you. So last year we trialled just some LED lights, but we didn't have them within a formal lantern sort of structure or a lantern itself. So we got the idea about how last year we were able to understand what they actually looked like as we marched down the roadway with our, I think it was somewhere closer to 15,000 people who enjoyed the torchlight last year. So this year we've got some actual prototypes of lantern structures that look very much like the traditional lanterns, and we'll be trialling those with those LED lights just to sort of make sure that they still are meeting our needs. And as you say, the purists are very, very passionate about the tradition of the kerosene lamp and what it needs to look like, but we do need to be mindful of those the chemicals and the phosphate stuffy stuff that goes in it, that stuff that causes a problem. So we'll be working on making sure that what we're doing in the future is actually environmentally friendly and good for our people, but without losing that tradition of the lanterns and what they need to look like as we all march down the street together.
Absolutely. And a question here, I guess, for the panel, if any of you do happen to know that. And someone's asked, how long does the torchlight run for when the torchlight's done? Because it does appear, I guess there's a feeling that it sort of gets shorter and shorter. I know trying to keep up with Nev Jones last year, I don't think it was short at all. It's quite a distance, isn't it?
A couple of kilometres, would you say? Yeah, so it was quite a distance last year. I'm just hoping that your stride this year is a lot smaller than what you did last year, so that I can keep up with you, Chief.
I'll be sure to take appropriate steps.
So everyone else might be a bit slower than previous years with me at the front.
You get to set the pace.
Yes,
you
definitely.
get to set the pace. Fair. So what's the future for Champs? Well, I guess if in a perfect world, if we got what we needed to and what we wanted, what would Champs of the future look like, do you think?
Well, I think we'll see some younger people involved, or that would be my plan. We've got some brilliant coaches that coach juniors. If some of those guys could come and make themselves known to the committee, I'm sure, or even in their district committees, to get on the committee and start to have a bit of input. Like, it's people my age, it's much better if we have some younger input, and that'll be going forward, I hope.
And I think because a lot of the competitions and events, they're marshalled, they're judged by volunteers that are trained and I guess certified and ticked off to be able to do that. And we do need that next generation coming through, don't we? Not only the competitors, but also those that are prepared to marshal, adjudicate, judge, and timekeep, and all the rest.
Exactly, yeah. But and there's some wonderful people out there that's had a lot to do with championships. We just need to get them on board to go forward.
Absolutely. Oh, well, fantastic. So Kayleen, thank you for you and your team, and Sam, for you and your team for this year, what will, I reckon will be a fantastic event. And it's not only good for, I guess, the CFA to get back into it, as you said, post that COVID, getting back again, you know, that friendship, camaraderie, that sort of stuff. But I've got to say, holding it here in District 22 in Shepparton wasn't that long ago that this community was suffering. Yeah, we had the floods, extensive damage. Yeah, the community is still recovering from quite a horrendous a natural disaster that occurred here, but right across Victoria. And I guess bringing championships to town leads to people investing in the community, whether that be staying at the local hotel, getting the local hamburger, or doing something. So it's supporting not only a great event, a great organisation, but also supporting a great town, and a town that's recovering at the moment. So thank you both for your assistance in bringing that to town. So as usual, and as promised, I continue to provide training updates, and we'll now go to Jean Dyzell, who'll be providing her last training updates in her role here with the CFA. Again, I'd like to publicly thank Jean for all her hard work and dedication to whipping CFA training into shape, getting CFA re-registered as an RTO, and doing such hard work and dedication to putting robust governance arrangements and processes into ensuring that our training is the best it can be, and the quality and recognition that it needs across the country. So over to you, Jean.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining tonight to watch the training update. Over the last few months, I've often heard that there's a lot of skills maintenance training occurring, but not a lot of skills acquisition training. So tonight, I have some data and numbers for you. For the last financial year, you will note that over 1,700 training courses were delivered. This has resulted in more than 12,000 of our members completing a course, and that equates to over 1,000 members per month, which is a great achievement. On this slide, you will also see a snapshot of some of the courses that have been delivered and the numbers of members that have completed the courses successfully. Well done to all of those members, to the regions, to the VEMTECs, and to our CFA educators who have made this possible. It is a significant achievement, folks. The next slide addresses some of our leadership training within CFA. I wanted to make a special mention about the Captain's Peer Mentoring Program, which is now in its 11th year with a student satisfaction rate of over 97%. Another one of our leadership courses is the Volunteering for Leadership course, which is equally successful and well regarded by our members. A special thanks to Chris Wilms and Sandra O'Connor, who have made these programs so incredibly successful. The next slide demonstrates the ongoing commitment of CFA to ensure our members are kept safe and receive first aid when required. Delivered in partnership with Alan's Training, CFA has trained over 2,000 members since the start of the financial year, again with a 97% satisfaction rating amongst our members. A quick shout out to Amy Starrick, who works tirelessly to ensure that the first aid training remains accessible to all. Finally, driving is an essential skill for all our members, and I'm very pleased to report that 89 driver educators were trained this financial year, which is a great boost to our capacity across the state. You will notice that the driving pages on the CFA website are now available. They introduce the driving training team and addresses many driving training questions. Thank you to Paul Eckholt and his team of driver instructors, and Rachel Zerno, who coordinate these important courses. CFA has also trained 117 new members this year in general rescue courses, thanks to the great efforts of Teresa Lloyd. And finally on this slide, I'd also like to acknowledge the incredible work of Nicole Harvey, Teresa Lloyd, Dave Maxwell and Frank Bickelman and his team at Huntley, who have made it possible for CFA to deliver fire investigation courses. This will provide world-class training to all our fire investigators. I know that members and regions are looking forward to the release of the Respond to Urban Fire course, and I'm very pleased tonight to announce that the training material will be finalised this week. On the slide, you will see the plan for the rollout of this course, making it available to all our members. Also be on the lookout for Kirsty Waugh and her team who are working on transitioning some of our members' competencies to PUA 19. I invite you to watch this space. Lastly, a thank you to you, our members, for supporting me in my role. It has been a privilege to work with you. I would also like to thank all of the regional training teams, the deputies, the executive, our Chief Officer Jason Heffernan, and our CEO Natalie MacDonald for all of their support. And to the wonderful operational doctrine and training team that I've had the privilege of working with, a very big thank you to you. I wish you all the very best, and I know that DCO Luke will continue to deliver high quality and compliant training. All the best, CFA. Back to you, Chief.
Thank you, Jean, for that update, and certainly we will miss you. What's fantastic to see, obviously, is the amount of training that is actually going on across the state. As we saw, some 2,000 plus members completing skills acquisition training. So not the skills maintenance, skills acquisition training. And I know, as I expect the Respond Urban package to be in my hot little hands tomorrow, that even more members will be undertaking training in the very near future. So for those that would have noticed now, and as I did ask around the state, we've got a lot of people joining from across Victoria, but also across the country. Yeah, a lot of people have told us where the rain has fallen. For our board member in the audience from District 24 at Bethungra, $500,000. Ross, I don't know what it's like at your place, but 16 mil at Lara and 18 millimetres at Gazette. We were at District 5 not that long ago where we had and celebrated International Women's Day. So a big shout out to the Gazette Brigade, and I hope you've got your gumboots on. So we've got two new panel members here with us this evening. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you,
welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Chief.
To the panel. So Terry, you're a volunteer in the North East region.
That's right, yep.
But also one of our managers for our diversity and inclusion section. It's been a big week for you.
It has been a fabulous week.
It has. Tell us why.
We've launched our diversity and inclusion strategy, which is an absolute milestone for CFA, and I'm really pleased to have this strategy launched. It's going to give an opportunity for us all to attract more and make our brigade sustainables and to really meet the needs of the community. So really, really pleasing to have it launched.
And there was a really lot of hard work in that. I know you've spent an incredible amount of time with many others across the state, focusing on ensuring that our D&I strategy is appropriate for CFA,
Absolutely.
but also in compliant to what government and arguably the broader community expects of CFA. So tell us more about things like the G-App and what we're doing in that space.
Absolutely. So the first piece of legislation in this space that the Victorian Government released was for a gender equality action plan. It's a legislative piece where we are required to report on. And while this is based on employees, we were very conscious that what benefits employees in our world benefits our volunteers. So it was always forefront in our mind. So we have that piece of work which sits nicely in with the diversity inclusion strategy and also the culture review outcome. It's a very important component that those three are central to delivering on the diversity and inclusion needs. And this is this strategy was written by volunteers for volunteers. It's been amazing in the focus groups and the discussions. We met with many members. We met with VFBV. We met with all walks of life. So this is your strategy written by you, which is a really important point.
How important is it, Terry, for CFA more broadly, but also CFA brigades to be reflective of the community that we serve?
Yeah, absolutely critical, Chief. That's one of the biggest messages this is the reason why we were doing this. If you look at your brigades, consider, are you reflective of the community that you serve? And for each brigade, it will be different because we're all made up from different walks of life. We all bring different skill sets. We all look a bit different. We're different in age, in our beliefs. So it's absolutely critical that we're reflective of the community. And the reason that is so we can respond to community needs. It's really important.
And it's more than just, I guess, what most people think about when we talk about diversity and inclusion. Everyone jumps to, I guess, the big one, gender, but it's more than just gender, isn't it?
Absolutely. So within the strategy, there are 5 areas of focus that we're looking at, and they are leadership, education, processes, culture and community. But most importantly, there's 7 priority groups that we are focusing on, and they are our First Nation Australians, all abilities, so we talk about accessibility and neurodiversity and disability in that. Our cultural and linguistic diversity, our LGBTIQA community members, our older people, our women and gender equality, and our youth and young people. And if we just look around this audience tonight, and I have no doubt those that are online, I can see so many representatives of those diverse groups. And why we are doing this is to attract more and to make sure that we meet the needs of each and every one of you in CFA.
Absolutely. Oh, well, Terry, it's great to see you fired up the chat here. There's a lot of people talking about. Simone says great work. She's had a bit of a read. Fantastic. Loves the work of the group. Another question here, how many applicants does CFA receive annually? Well, we had about 2,000 people join last year, and we actually have some 3,000 people going through the various stages of recruitment at the moment, which I think is fantastic. And we're starting to get that momentum of people coming back to the CFA. What's the ratio of men to women in CFA?
CFA still has some way to go in terms of attracting women to the organisation. We are doing much better than we have been. Our numbers are certainly rising. We are encouraging women into the organisation by providing opportunities for women to feel supported through International Women's Day was a really good example of some of the things that we have been doing, Chief. So there's many initiatives out there to support not only women but also other ethnic groups. And I think by being diverse and inclusion, we are going to attract more people because it is a community expectation. This field and this space is really heightened these days, that we cannot accept maybe what we did in the past.
Absolutely. And it's not just a CFA problem.
No,
this is an emergency services problem. Fire services generally in Australia have this issue, and I know we are working so hard to be representative of the communities that we represent, because the reality is we talk about volunteer numbers, we talk about availability of volunteers. 50% of the population are female, but yet I think our numbers are around the 20% mark, and I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong. So, in theory, there's 30% of members we're missing out on in the community. Sam?
Definitely. I truly believe that we've got an untapped source that's out there, and it's not just about the women. We need a culture within CFA where everyone feels welcome to join, regardless of your background, regardless of your age. And I look forward to seeing the changes that occur from this document.
Absolutely. And so Terry, what resources are available? If I'm a brigade, I look around my BMT, or I look at the next general meeting of the brigade and I see the faces and think to myself, oh geez, we're pretty all like in this situation. What resources are available to a brigade that might want to challenge the norm, be brave, take the next step forward to try and increase diversity in their brigade?
So we have a number of programs already developed and also on the way. So in the Inclusive Language Guide, a simple thing about how we speak, the words we use and the language is really critical to this space. So we have developed an Inclusive Language Guide. As part of the actions in the strategy, we will be developing toolkits and training to assist brigades, because that has come out, give me the basics. A lot of this work is around respect, behavioural standards, those sort of packages that are out at the moment. So there is certainly information there, and we're happy to support people directly. If they want to come to us, we can point them in the right direction.
Excellent. And all the information about the D&I strategy and the tools and tips and tricks are available on members online, and we actually encourage everyone to reach out. Chris, DMO, I've said it before and I'll say it again, you want to know anything in this organisation, just ask a DMO. You talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people, you're sort of like the unofficial, you know...
We're the silent army of the CFA.
Yes, yeah, everyone has a chat to the DMO and shares their inner secrets and what's going on. So how important, so being a mechanic,
yes,
in the I guess the industry is a good example of an industry like firefighting that, you know, traditionally not very diverse. In the DMO space, what are some of the things that I guess what CFA is doing to try and increase diversity amongst our mechanical team?
Among our mechanical team, we're actually recruiting female apprentices, and in the Horsham workshop we have one, and it's not so much, you know, it's very top heavy with male around mechanics, and with having a female apprentice we're having to learn and adapt new processes to achieve the same outcome, because we are all made up of physical differences from height, weight and abilities, muscle strength. So it's been a real eye-opener in the way we can achieve the same outcome to do work smarter.
Because, you know, in today's day and age, work health and safety, it's no longer about how brute force, you know, or how you know, lift a tyre or, you know, bash out a bearing or lift a gearbox or a transfer case. Like, we've got hoists for that. We've got sling loaders and all those sort of things. So, yeah, there is the ability for people to be able to perform those tasks and not be I guess the traditional macho mechanic.
And with the fleet developing the way it is, we're going to a lot more computer-based programs. So yes, the mechanical principles are still the same with gearboxes and all that, but it's now a lot more of it's driven off the computer. So we don't spend as much time lifting gearboxes, we spend more time sitting in front of the laptop and diagnosing.
Absolutely. So how important is it to, obviously, great work with the Horsham workshops with a female apprentice, and great work in advocating and getting more into the organisation. That's fantastic to see. But how important is it that when we are designing our fleet and equipment, that it is gender appropriate, not only from, I guess, the ability to maintain it and fix it, but also for our firefighters in order to operate the piece of equipment?
It's a real challenge because everybody's different. So from maintaining and fixing, I can't fit into some places, others fit where the components are replaced, but a smaller person can. Whereas I can reach further because I have a longer arm and they may have a shorter arm. It's very challenging, it's very difficult. So to make the perfect unit, it's not going to please everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us, what's new in the world of the DMOs?
Oh, I believe we have some new trucks coming into the fleet. I actually haven't seen it. I've only seen a photo, so you're a step ahead of me.
So for those that don't know, I may have taken a little sneaky ride with our head of infrastructure services and our Group General Manager for Support Services, Kylie Bates, in the brand new ultra heavy tanker, which will be available at the Championship. So for anyone who wants to come and have a look, a fantastic piece of equipment. So whilst you've got the microphone and the opportunity, Chris, is there anything you want to advocate on behalf of the DMOs to our people out there to make sure that they're doing, or better yet, not doing on the fireground?
Oh, look, just approach us. We're very approachable. We're more than willing to facilitate any problems or questions you may have. And we're not going to run away. We're here to help and assist the volunteer. At the end of the day, you are the end user and we're here to assist you.
Absolutely. And as I said, our DMOs do a fantastic job right across the state. And I know our volunteers are very thankful, and likewise, we're also very thankful here at the Championships, because many people might not know that our DMOs come and do a fantastic job of setting up the tracks and the competition areas, and also work tirelessly in the lead up to the events and well into the night and after the events, making sure that the timing gear is working, that everything is maintained in tip-top shape for every stretch of the competition. So to Chris, you and your crew, thank you very much for the efforts that you guys put in. You're very much behind the scenes, but without our DMOs, the championships certainly wouldn't happen. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you for recognising us.
And Terry, thank you for coming along this evening and talking about a subject that's very close to your heart and something. And I know there's a lot of conversation in here and about the women's network, the women's advisory group. They're doing some big things at the moment, some good things. That certainly has made it all the way not only to the executive and board, but all the way through to government in as far as getting money for gender appropriate change facilities at our training campuses and 40 brigades across the state. So congratulations and well done, Terry, and well done to your team. Last month, when we were in Hamilton, we had a question asked in respect to Hino and emission standards and a conversation around class action suit against the manufacturer in respect to emission standards. We took some time to have a chat to Danny Jones about what it meant for our Hino fleet, and he wanted to give us a bit of an update on some of the specifications and what it means for CFA. So over to you, Danny.
Thanks, Chief, and good evening to you all. Through our regular contract management discussions with key suppliers and our collaborative relationship with other emergency services via our involvement in the Australasian Fire and Emergency Service Authorities Council, or AFAC, Fleet Technical Group, our fleet team is constantly monitoring relevant industry information and assessing how it may or may not affect our fleet. In March 2022, we were contacted by Hino Australia and advised that Hino Motors Limited in Japan had identified past misconduct in relation to its application for certification concerning the emissions and fuel economy performance in some of Hino's engine variants. At the time, we were able to confirm that these engine variants were not fitted to vehicles purchased for CFA's firefighting fleet. Please be assured that our firefighting fleet is compliant with all relevant Australian design rules and emission standards applicable at the time of manufacture. Thank you, and back to you, Chief.
Thanks, Danny, for that update and what is was an important question asked by one of our members, and thanks for taking the time to do that research and updating us on what it means for us and our fleet. Well, as you would have noticed, every time we go to a bit of a video, we do a little sneaky panel swap. And we have Amelia and Tegan on the panel with us so far. Welcome.
Yeah.
So, big weekend for you guys?
Yes.
What have you been up to?
Training a lot.
And what are we training for?
Getting ready for the championships.
Championships. So, you've done something pretty special. Both Euroa secondary school students, but last year, you were the first to take out the inaugural VFBV Female Aggregate Trophy for the highest points. So congratulations. How did it feel and what does it mean?
Thank you. It was a big thing. Having females included into the championships was very important. We have a lot more this year, a lot more female members, so it was needed and it's important for us. We've had a bit of discussion tonight around the importance of trying to get more young people into competitions, but more so into the CFA and CFA movement. Tell us about how did you become involved in CFA? For me, it was family. A lot of family in the CFA, and it was something that I always wanted to do from a young age. Then the championships really helped me get into now being a volunteer. And what about you, Min? My sister was first doing it, and then I joined when I was old enough to do it, and now I'm a volunteer member in the brigade. Awesome, awesome. No, that's fantastic. So I guess it's fantastic that you took part of that. What does it do for you personally in terms of confidence and that sort of stuff? It gives us a sense of belonging. Getting out there in our community, helps us work on our skills as well. Awesome. Sam, how great is it to have these ladies with you here with us this evening? I'm just absolutely rapt to be able to meet them again.
And I'm extremely pleased that there is actually a trophy that acknowledges the hard work and dedication that these women, young women, have put into CFA and the organisation.
Absolutely. So talk me through, take me back to last year. What were the events that you took part in to be able to take out the prize?
So we had Tegan doing a hydrant race, where she came first, didn't you? Yeah, and then we had our 2Y, where we also placed first. Mm-hmm. And then the 2 men, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh, very good. And what about this year? What events are we doing this year?
We're doing all the female events again, as well as all the open events that we're able to participate in, and we also have a few new female members joining us as well.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So we've had, as I said, we've had a lot of conversation around getting more young people involved in CFA. So for brigades that are out there that might be thinking about becoming involved in competitions or CFA more broadly, or wanting to think about, well, how do I get more young people into the organisation? What are some of the things that, or tips or tricks or advice that you might have for those brigades?
Our numbers definitely dropped during COVID, as many sporting brigade or sporting clubs also did. And becoming coach this year, I really had to think about how and what was going to work for our community and how we could get that involvement. So we went around to our schools and actively recruited lots of junior members, as well as friends of the current junior members as well.
So how many junior members do you have in your team?
So competing at the championships on the weekend, we had 14, and yeah, that's better we've got at the moment. It's not only, that's a fantastic number, and certainly a team that's on the up and up, and ultimately will give Melton a run for their money one day, I am sure. The purple machine. So a coach, wow. Tell me what that involves, and how did you become the coach? So our long-running coach went into retirement. So I took the opportunity to step up and teach the younger generation my skills. And also coaching seniors this weekend, so hopefully we do okay.
Very good. So Neil, how important is it to, I guess, what are your thoughts and feelings to hearing how great and the energetic enthusiasm from these two ladies and wanting to get involved in championships and juniors?
Excellent, because the juniors are our future. And I mean, I can go back to my own brigade where we used to train at the school, so we would get the kids, and as they'd leave school, they'd see the juniors start to train, and I could say for our brigade, that probably saved our brigade, because we had 13 or 14 kids that were interested in run the championships, and we did well, and that's our future.
Absolutely. So a lot of I guess, let's face it, a lot of competition out there for people's times. We are competing against the footy club, the soccer club, the rowing club, or surf life saving, or other community events and groups. So you were saying about you went into the schools. How important is it for us to start, I guess, reaching into secondary schools and engaging with young people?
I think it's very important. The CFA, especially our running, is not out there in the community as much as it probably should be. And it's definitely, I think, you don't really know about it unless you've got a family member. So we really need to get out there and start going into the schools and on the community notice boards and things like that to start pushing it and getting more involvement.
Oh, excellent, no, thank you. It's great to see you here, and I invite you to hang around on the panel for a bit, because I'm sure our people out there have probably got a few questions for you. A lot of love for you there for both of you, actually, in the efforts that you've done and your achievements. So that's great to see. We have a question from the audience, and Alan's got a question about FMR, and because I'm not a technical expert in this space, I've phoned a friend, and standing next to him is Fiona. So feel free to have a chat, guys. Alan.
Thanks, Chief. Sorry to change the subject, but I have a question. With the rollout of FMR, what additional wellbeing support will be provided to us as volunteers? As our silent heroes of the wellbeing team, they are stretched in some areas, and I was wondering what existing support CFA are going to do to try and encourage more wellbeing team members to join up to support us for FMR.
Yeah, I'll just swap places. So that's a really good question. I am a peer as well, Alan, so I really appreciate that question. And I really appreciate the Chief also asking about mental health and wellbeing, because it is a really important topic generally, but especially for FMR. I have had conversations with Suzanne Leckie, the manager of the Mental Health and Wellbeing Programme. So we have had some early discussions about what the extra support that you're alluding to might look like. I don't have an exact answer for you yet, mainly because we're not going to reinvent the wheel, and we're going to leverage off the great work that CFA has already done in this space. But secondly, as a joint programme being run with Ambulance, and also having a long-standing relationship with Ambulance peer support and their mental health and wellbeing programs, we're going to look and see how we can amalgamate the two and really leverage off the strength of both agencies to provide our members with mental health and wellbeing support, as well as clinical skills support, because what I'm hearing from EMR brigades is that sometimes a lot of the stress they experience after a job comes from, did I do good enough? Did I do that job properly? Did it go as well as it could? So by bringing in mental health and wellbeing as well as clinical skills support, we feel we'll be able to provide members with some really good support in that space. So I can't give you definitives right now. It's a bit early, but it is definitely an important aspect of the rollout for us.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Fiona, for taking that one for me. Fantastic and great answer to that question. I've been called out. Melton, their colour is maroon, not purple. So my apologies to the Melton crew, and I'm sure you'll make me pay for it over the weekend. A lot of chat in questions, I guess, or general comments in the chat around, as I touched on, some of the competing interests within community and the like. And there's a lot of conversation here about how do we pull people away from the computer, away from the Xbox or the PlayStation in order to get involved in juniors. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's really you can't really say. It's kind of up to the what the children want to do. But most of our ones, they seem pretty keen to get out and do it when we go talk to them.
Mm-hmm. And you reckon that like getting involved in, so where I come from, for example, we had a really big heavy involvement in secondary schools, cadet programs and that sort of stuff. So do you think getting schools more involved in school sporting activities and the like is a way that we can look at getting the youth engaged in CFA?
Yeah, our secondary college did have a program that worked, I think, alongside with the sort of GFF, and I think that needs to be sort of brought back into the schools to get that involvement.
Awesome. So Sam, your thoughts on getting youth involved in the organisation generally?
Well, obviously I think it's really important. So I myself I'm a secondary school teacher and actually ran an emergency services journey program in schools for over 10 years. So I am someone that's extremely keen to be able to showcase what we do in schools, and I think it needs to be embedded from inside schools out so that we can attract the young members that we actually need. So awesome.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's with some trepidation and nervousness that I ask our board member Ross Coyle, who now has the microphone. Ross, over to you.
Thanks, Chief. And actually, my question's more to Neil and to Sam, probably about championships. And it's fantastic to be here for the championships this weekend. They're a fantastic display of what CFA actually is. And I think some of the highlights of the juniors and watching them run, particularly on the Sunday, we'll see the rules, and that'll be fantastic. Also, a great effort by all the people that put it together, such as Alan Davies and Neil and the VFBB and the DMOs. And it's fantastic that we now see the rurals and the urbans running at the same time. And I think that's just one of the great achievements that's happened over the years. What's the next step in your view, Neil and probably Sam, about bringing those even closer together? Do we see a future where perhaps we see a merging of some competition between the two streams? And what do we think the way forward for championships is?
Do you want? I'll go with that one.
You can go with that one.
The urbans and the rurals definitely run a different competition. There's no question about that. And where we go with that, we have urban competitors come over and run in our competitions at the same time. But it's just awkward on the Sunday, especially on the Saturday. Sorry, but it's awkward to sort of run two competitions separately and not have them well joined together, if you know what I mean. We've either got to change some events or talk a little bit more about joining that. We've tried to put in time space so we could allow for urbans to come over. Now I don't know whether many rurals actually have gone over and tried to run any urban events because they're pretty specific on how they do it. So it's taken a little while for some of the rurals to probably pick that up. But look, the future, who knows? Have
we ever considered a common event being run between the two streams separately, but is the same event that might lead to something in the future?
Not at this stage, no. But it's not something that we should forget about either. It's something that if we're going to run at the same venues, which has worked well the last couple of years, it's something that we've perhaps got to look at.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ross, and thanks, Neil, for that response. It's certainly a fantastic suggestion there, and some food for thought about as we continue to evolve the championship. So, again, some fantastic comments in the chat here, and yes, Eric, the chief charges are primed, limbered up, and willing to take on whoever may dare to challenge us this weekend. And I encourage everyone to come down to the track and watch me suitably have a cardiac arrest, where Fiona, I'm sure, will be there with her defibrillator to bring me back to life. So certainly, if anyone's in for a good laugh, feel free to come and watch us on the urban track, and then again on the rural track tomorrow. So certainly, well, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time again. We've had a fantastic evening. We've discussed some really important topics to the CFA, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the panel this evening: Kayleen, Sam, Neil, Fiona, Amelia, Tegan, Terry, and Chris for their time and coming on and contributing to the conversation. It's a conversation we need to have. We need to continue to have, particularly in the diversity inclusion space, because it will be the strength of CFA today and into the future. My thanks to the people, as always, behind the desk that make this all happen. That's to Naomi, to Lerna, to Martin and Sally. Apologies tonight from my executive producer, Brad. Shout out to you. Sally stepped into your fold tonight and done a fantastic job as expected. So thank you to the team for putting it on. It takes a lot to put the volunteer forum together, and the team do a fantastic job, and thanks to them. But as always, thanks to our live audience who have taken the time to come and be with us tonight, to share with the experience, to ask the questions and participate. Thank you for coming along. So that's the conclusion of tonight's volunteer forum. Thank you. My best wishes and success to all teams competing in the VFBV CFA State Championships this weekend. And I look forward to watching many of you participate in friendly competition. And yes, I know some play for sheep stations, as I said. Yeah, it's fantastic to see, and this is one of the weekends, I've got to say, personally for myself, I actually look forward to and enjoy immensely. So good luck to all the teams competing. Melton, I apologise for getting your colour wrong yet again. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Stay safe.